Okay. Okay. We are back. Screen is back. So who would like to volunteer some suggestions or perhaps just one suggestion as to the benefit of a smartphone? Yes, back.
According to our discussion with my friends, we have come up with the following benefits. one. It is an instant mode of communication where you can call texts and emails. And also be able to relate videos and photos in real time and be used in research. It's so easy to learn. It has a position that can be able to solve problems like calculators, right? And also be used to do virtual meetings. It is portable and can be used anywhere. And also be used to, can be customized to suit one's needs. And it can also be used to cut on the cost of travel because you can get whatever information you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's several things there around instant messaging, saving on the cost of transport and travel by having information and meetings online and such like. Many things. Any other things that you have come up with in your discussions that are benefits of a smartphone?
I think my brother said all what we have discussed about. You can say something.
You know,
The smartphone, as the name speaks, is actually smart because you have the whole world within you. You can almost say it is omnipresent. You are everywhere at any time, you can have any information that you want. So as the name suggests, it's actually a smartphone because you are smart when you have. When somebody sees you with this smartphone, you are also smart. You can communicate. You can take a photo, you can say hi, and you can bring, like from your place, you can have it here, you can communicate where you are. Thank you.
yes.
Maybe I can also add what our brother has just said as far as the smartphone is concerned. Actually, we summarized everything, and I can only say it also cuts across all the races of the whole world. Because, some days back, just a friend of mine requested from a smartphone, and he was from a different tribe. So alianza tu akakoroka nyumba yake. Maanisha ya kwamba it fits every community. You can use your language, you can twist to any language, and you can communicate very easily with anybody else. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah. It brings people together potentially across different cultures and time zones and all sorts. Yes, sir.
Another good thing you made me is also available.
Yes. Absolutely. You can access the scriptures and other resources. It's more than a Bible, isn't it? It's a library. Ivataba is a library specifically for pastors, but there's a whole universe, well, not a universe, they call it the metaverse. There's you can find out answers to almost anything by searching our old friend Google. Yes, sir.
Only to add on what has been said is that even through the smartphone, you can build your career. For instance, we have Julius Egon. Through the YouTube, he was able to learn about trends happening, and without necessarily going to the field, but he was able to tap this talent through the smartphone and to YouTube to be specific.
Yeah, you can build a following, you can promote a brand, you can do business. We've already touched on M-Pesa. How many people here have paid for something using M-Pesa? Have you used M-Pesa? Yeah. So we use it for banking. And one of the benefits of banking is that it leads to better governance, it leads to better and more transparent accounts. So it ultimately has an impact crime levels, and corruption rates, and all sorts. When I was travelling here from Nairobi with my friends yesterday, we used Google Maps to help us find our way, and Google gave us directions right to the door. If we had had an accident and there had been nobody around, if your phone is on, they can find you. So you can be found if you have an accident, and there are examples of people who've been in very remote places who've had very bad accidents, but help has been able to get to them and find them because they were able to trace their mobile phone. So there are many, many potential benefits from study, and banking, finance, and messaging, research. And there are apps that will count how many times my heart beats, tell me if I need to go and see the doctor. So it can help to keep you healthy, track your exercise, how many steps you've done in a day, and have you exercised enough, or do you need to go do some more exercise? So many different ways in which the internet is embedded, embodied, and every day. And a device like a smartphone has many, many benefits. But equally, there are risks. So I'd like you to spend another 2 or 3 minutes in your conversations thinking about some of the risks of that kind of technology for today. So let's come back together. Would someone like to suggest just one of the risks that you have identified? Who would like to go first? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's very addictive. And you can become addicted to the device itself and the security that it gives you by touching it, feeling it, looking at it. But you can also become addicted to the things that you find there. Anything from Candy Crush games through to some very unpleasant things that can be watched and observed very easily at the click of a few buttons and letters. So the risk of addiction, gambling, addictions, all sorts of pornography, it's all there. Yeah, very addictive. Anybody else? Yes.
Consumes time.
It consumes time. It certainly does. We've already seen 7 hours and 40 minutes. Young people in Kenya are spending. We don't know what they're doing. Some of them are using it for good, and some of them are not using it so wisely, no doubt. So it certainly consumes a lot of time, and perhaps that time could be better spent somewhere else. Anything else? Yes.
The candidates still exams.
So it can be used for plagiarism, for cheating. Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. And I know that in universities, plagiarism is a huge issue, and particularly today with digital, there are programs that can be run to check to what extent this is your own work and to what extent you've taken this from elsewhere. So we need to be careful that we're thinking for ourselves and not just relying on Google to take us from A to B to C to D. Yes, sir.
It will also reduce your manual work because you keep on fuse videos, so you do not go to the farm.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a similar thing to what was said just now. It stops, it can take you away from your manual labour, from what you're really meant to be doing. And that can have a negative impact on yourself, your family, your health, your crops, your business in so many ways.
It can explode.
It can explode. Your phone can catch fire. Yeah. And they're very vigilant on error codes about lithium batteries and things like that. So there are physical risks as well. And perhaps we don't yet know all of the clinical implications of our engagement with smartphones. It's too early. Yes.
It's risk to our health. Maybe by looking at it, too much, it will affect the eyes.
Yeah.
Some people have some just maybe radiation also.
Yeah, but there certainly are potential health risks to posture, to our hearing, to our brains. And in terms of the way that we absorb information, we know already that the impact of digitization means that people have shorter attention spans. And are more inclined to remember sound bites than lengthy arguments. And that doesn't mean to say that we can't do that, but it does mean to say that the way that we receive information, the way that we learn is changing. And we can either fight against that, or we can try and accept that that is happening and construct methods of teaching and learning that actually take into account the fact that the way that people absorb and are gaining information is changing. But it's a risk if we ignore it. It might be a risk even if we embrace it, but nevertheless it is there. Yes.
It's also risky because if somebody big number of your advisor can also access your money.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now there are many examples of security being breached both at a personal level and at corporate levels. And to me, we were very worried about COVID as a human race. We're very worried about Russia and Ukraine as a human race. There are many things that we can be worried about. My greatest fear is cybersecurity. I think that the world is so joined up now that if someone can access that data, the risk to us all is immense. And so the people who have skills in data security that's why they get paid a lot of money, because they actually are keeping us safe. But there are definitely risks, and I could quote examples of people, intelligent people of caliber people who have fallen foul of scams or had their accounts breached through not having tight enough security in their devices. So definitely, yes, a risk.
It's also expensive.
Yeah. They are expensive. The device itself is expensive, and then using the device carries costs as well. We have that data, we have that access to network, and that can be a drain on resources. So we need to be wise about when and how we're using that, not just using it as something which is a piece of entertainment or for idle chatter, if you like, but for things that are of real benefit.
Can cause an accident.
It can cause an accident if you're on your phone and riding a boda. These two things do not work well together, or in other ways, you can be distracted very easily. And one hand, at least, and part of your brain is focusing on the phone when you might be using a piece of machinery or in so many other ways, just crossing the road. Yes, sir.
A lot of falling, a lot of temptation.
Yes, many temptations. Many temptations. I think one of the other things which we sometimes don't appreciate is the benefits are also potential risks. So if I am in the middle of nowhere and have broken my leg and need to get to hospital, my phone rings, I've been found and taken to hospital. But that level of surveillance means that if somebody wants to follow me, if someone wants to find me, you can't really hide in the digital age. You know, and do we want, you know, we have a God who is all knowing and all seeing. Do we need a digital metaverse which knows where we are and sees what we're doing? So if I search for something on Google, I will begin receiving adverts or similar things on other apps that I use on my phone. It knows what I think. It knows what I like. It knows my preferences. I get emails offering me medicines, or emails offering me items of clothing, or emails offering me cheap flights to Africa, because that data about me creates a footprint. And that footprint is in itself a security risk to me. So we need to be thoughtful and not rushing to our engagement with digital things, because there are benefits, but there are also risks. And we've only just touched on some of those here this morning. But it's useful for us to think about these things before we assume that we must go headlong very quickly into digitization, because we need to be mindful of the implications one way or the other. Now, already this morning, someone has used the phrase virtual reality. And I want to just challenge that gently, because I'm not sure that it is virtual reality. I think I want to suggest that it is reality. I am here now physically, this is reality, but the way that I behave online in digital environments is also reality. It's not virtual reality, it's a different reality, but it's reality. So in the same way as I've just been describing personal data, that's real data. You can construct a profile of Reverend David Stedman that would be very, very accurate to the person that you see before you today. When I am sending emails these days, very often if I'm replying to an email, Gmail will suggest some replies that I might typically make to the question that's been asked in the email. That is, at a very basic level, artificial intelligence. It knows the words that I use. It knows the vocabulary that is typical for me. It knows the type of responses that I would make. And that artificial intelligence can be taken to different levels, and there are sophisticated systems available now where if I wanted to, I could create an avatar of myself. There I am, I think I look pretty cool. It may or may not look anything like what I actually look like, but I can create a profile of myself. And the technology exists for that avatar to attend, for example, a Zoom meeting. I'm busy doing something else, so I send my avatar, and the avatar will behave as I would behave, because the amount of data, footprint that I've left behind digitally is sufficient that can be brought together, and you can create an avatar of Dave Stedman who could potentially, and in the future,